Hello, my name is Peter Van Schie. I'm the editorial director at Whirlpool Development. I would like to welcome you to the Trelleborg Port Performance Roundtable, in which we will be discussing some of the key findings from the Trelleborg Marine Systems' latest barometer report. Today we are joined by Ignacio Trejo, Naval Architect and Project Manager at Seaport 21, Dale Miller, Regional Vice President at Tetra Tech, Scott Butler, Vice President and Senior Project Manager at Moffett & Nichol, Hirosugu Mori from Sumitomo, Japan, Richard Hepworth, President, Trelleborg Marine Systems, and finally, Elio Giralli, founder of Giralli Studio from Italy.
So the barometer report is, as Peter's mentioned, is a report that we do annually. We talk to key industry stakeholders, as many as we can find, but usually 200-300 port owners, operators, consulting engineers, contractors, where we look to get views from a high-level industry perspective of the key issues of today. So we're really trying to find out what the trends are and what's happening at a high level. And obviously we use it to help guide our business and help provide other stakeholders in the industry with hopefully some useful information. This year is the fourth year we've done the barometer report, and I think there's a big change in terms of optimism or contrast in issues from when we first started doing this in 2010. So 2010 the industry, I guess, was still in the midst of a global recession, or coming out of the global recession, and so we found then that people were a bit downbeat. There was lots of issues with ports having downtime, with people understood that they wanted to spend money wisely and look at products from a whole life cycle perspective, not just products but investments from a whole life cycle over the life of a project. Perspective, but really they were under pressure. There was not much money to spend, so they were really buying the cheapest thing that they could buy. So I think this year's report, there's a lot more optimism. I think more than 95% of the people that responded said they were going to have more money to spend in the year ahead than they've had in previous years, and that was looking at operational expenditure and capital expenditure. And the other interesting thing we found this year was there was quite a high level of interest from the owners and the operators in having suppliers and contractors to provide full life support for the products or services that they're offering. So not just buying things on day one and then expecting just to leave it alone, but they want people to support that product through its lifestyle. I think there was 75% of the people we spoke to thought that would be a good idea. At the same time, they've also identified that in the supply chain that's actually a bit of a weakness from the supply chain. So on the one hand, the industry is demanding or looking for more support from suppliers and service companies. At the same time, service companies and suppliers need to step up to the mark and offer and up the game on that respect, I think.
So I just wanted to come back to the report, where it said that the need to update existing port terminals and facilities is the biggest challenge brought about by increasing vessel sizes. Is there anybody who wants to comment? Ignacio, maybe?
Well, I have a comment that I think no matter how you enhance and build up a port, it needs to be founded on a good basic system, docks, wharfs, piers, fenders, support system. So we were talking earlier about visual inspections, walking through and making sure the basic structure is in good shape, I think is very important. I see owners looking to O&M costs as part of our design element. So I think that's an important aspect.
I totally agree. I think that's an important aspect because from our position in, let's say, the bottom of the supply chain, we're supplying equipment to ports, greenfield ports, which maybe have a 50-year design life. So, but by the time those requirements are passed down from the owner-operator to through a consulting engineer into a contracting company, and they want to buy things, those guys really are only interested in buying the cheapest thing because and something that will last to get them through their, let's say, warranty period. So really the model something that somehow has to change, where the port owners who want the equipment to be there, work well and last for as long as possible, somehow need to put that and make those requirements a demand of the specification, or so the supply chain gets to see that and adds that, because we want to be able to add that value in there. But the sort of the model that we have to go through, or that exists from procurement, doesn't exist to be able to do that.
Well, when you do the risk and reliability, the nice part for the people that are spending the money is you can say you can invest this amount of money and get this life, or this and the other. So when you're talking about fenders, for example, that you're certainly interested in with a long life, you see the capital cost up front, but you trade that off with the life you get, and that has some real meaning to decision makers as they look at their fund.
I think as consultants, when you're talking about greenfield terminals and new facilities, where it starts is really in the front end engineering and the documents that are put together for a tender, and they're very often, especially in the oil and gas business, these are design build contracts. But the tender documents have to be written such that some of these standards are put in place and they're really communicated to the owner, the importance. Because as you said, Richard, when you get down to a competitive level with marine contractors, they're bidding, they're on a fixed price basis, and they're going to try to supply the least cost equipment unless there is some really clear specifications and written in the feed documents, and we found that many times, because once you get to the marine contractor, once they're done with their warranty period, they're done with it, and the owner's got to deal with it for the next 20, 30 years. For them.
It's also very important, this aspect. But if we want to investigate where investment will be allocated in the next future, in my opinion, we have to look a little bit in a broader way, because actually the system of ports is shifting towards new models and toward new requirements that are changing very quickly in the next years. So there are two common aspects to keep in mind. One is that in future ports need to be smarter, and one is that must to be green. This is a requirement, and both the aspects are economic drivers, both the aspects. So in this situation, it's normal that the performance of the infrastructure must be the first requisite. But it's important to take into account the fact that we are going now to a crisis moment where maintenance lacked for no investment possible in this situation. So owners and operators went in a period of continuous emergency. They get continually to solve lack, failures, and so on, with a lot of shadow costs that were downtimes, were crises of infrastructure, and so on. In next future, they will have the needing to rehabilitate the infrastructure, but also thinking with this new economic driver I said 2 minutes before. So it's right to find the right way.
So after this global economic downturn, as they say, are the clients a little bit more careful about where they put their money? Do they want to see big returns on their investments? We heard from America, but is that something similar in Spain, for instance?
In Spain, the situation is a bit special because we have the port authorities, all of them belong to Puertos del Estado, and they have a constant budget along the time. So really, they didn't suffer the crisis, except in some very important inversions that have been done in Spain. In that case, the budget of these ports are lower because they have to afford the investment. And on the other hand, there are private companies that operate their own terminal. So the economical aspects are completely different. Okay. Because in the same port, you have a part of the port that is public and a part of the port that is private. I agree with Scott that, for example, in some cases, and we have also participated in the redaction of some EPC contracts, it is very difficult to establish the quality. Very difficult. There is no criteria, specific criteria for knowing which is the best. You just say, for example, in the case of defenders, it is necessary this kind of this type of fender, and it must absorb this amount of energy.
Yeah.
And you receive a provider that comply with it. And in some cases, the port authorities are in Spain. In some cases, are a bit worried because they don't know anyone to go and say, please check this fender.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to come back on that later on. I just want to look at the investments that are made, and you want to interrupt my Ignacio earlier, which I said.
I come from a country very near to Spain. I come from Italy, so the situation is quite similar. And the problem is which is the pocket from which the money is going out. So if the pockets are different, this is the problem. And only a correct framework of the decision maker can ensure a good quality standard. In other case is the problem of substandard services for the final user.
Yeah.
How does the shippers, the users of the ports, is their influence great in influencing investment? I mean, do you see that as in the public sector?
Our experience is that there's hardly any, seems to be, or very little interaction between shipping companies, so the people using the ports, with the port owners who are actually going to operate the port, and then down through the supply chain. So the people that are actually going to use the equipment or have got their assets using the assets of the port seem to be a little less engaged in that whole process. I think that's different. It's different in different industries. So perhaps in, for example, LNG and oil and gas, it's a bit more of an integrated service. But if you go to commercial ports, container ports and things like that, our experience is there's hardly any interaction at all between the shippers and the...
As long as you have fenders there and they look like they're working, they'll come and...
Exactly,
I just want to go to Hirosugu. How is it in Japan? Are people investing? Does it start to come up again? Are the port authorities ready to expand the port and say, okay, we're going to open shop now after 4 years?
Actually, in Japan, there are more than 120 ports in Japan. A lot of keyboard, and cargo is growing. Vessel is more bigger. That means port quality is just a little decreasing. So the problem is we have to how to manage asset maintenance. All keyword it's difficult, impossible to maintain same level. Japanese government is thinking efficient management system. So now Japanese government ask all important port facility to make maintenance plan for 5 years. But that is personal opinion. The main focus on how to maintain keyboard. But in my point of view, we have to thinking about more totally, not only infrastructure but also equipment level.